Kia ora koutou katoa. The great contemplatives of Christianity describe their profound experiences of union with God, but the very nature of those experiences made it impossible for them to define or describe the one with whom they were in oneness. The 6th century Christian mystic known as Dionysius, whose work informed much of the contemplative tradition of the faith that followed, wrote a long paragraph explaining what God is not, including these lines: "Nor can God be expressed or conceived, since God is neither number nor order, nor greatness nor smallness, nor equality nor inequality, nor similarity nor dissimilarity." Teresa of Avila, similarly, referring to contemplative prayer, said, "In this state there is no feeling, only enjoyment without any understanding of the thing in which the soul is rejoicing. It understands it is enjoying some good in which all good is gathered together, but this good is incomprehensible." St. John of the Cross, on his allegorical drawing of the trail to the top of Mount Carmel, wrote, "Ni eso, ne eso, ni eso. Not this, not this, not this." To meet God, one must let go of all assumptions and attachments along the way. One must seek nothing and nobody. So today, thinking about icons, any image of God, any icon that purports to image God, even Rublev's beloved icon of the Trinity, is fundamentally flawed. At best, icons are signposts pointing to a path. Our first reading today is allegedly a pre-Christian Celtic canticle, pointing to the divine path, using the "I am" phrase, which we Christians are familiar with from John's Gospel. And by the sheer diversity of the "I am" statements, from creatures to created matter, from knowledge to fire in the head, from a murmur to a beam, deconstructs any fixed notion of what or who God is. In this sense, the writer, Emergen, I would suggest prefigures the later Christian mystics. I am left wondering how Emergen would have us pray. The piece I'm referring to goes like this, by the way. I am the wind that breathes upon the sea. I am the wave of the ocean. I am the murmur of the billows. I am the ox of the 7 combats. I am the vulture upon the rocks. I am the beam of the sun. I am the fairest of plants. I am a wild boar in valor. I am a salmon in the water. I am a lake in the plain. I am a word of science. I am the point of the lance of battle. I am the God who created in the head the fire. Who is it who throws light into the meeting on the mountain? Who announces the ages of the moon? Who teaches the place where couches the sun, if not I? After you read or hear such a thing, I'm left wondering how Emergen would have us pray. How do you pray to a God who is wild and undomesticated, who is terrible and untamable, who creates fire in the head, who is one thing and then another? What so often happens in Christian prayer is that we melt down such ferocity and all the unexplainable bits we don't like, and recast the deity in the mold of acceptability, so we can get a handle on God, and so we can pretend, I think, to know God. I think that last lines of John Greenleaf Whittiers' great hymn, drawing on the Elijah story, point to the path of journeying into God, listening, feeling it all, being in silence, and then maybe, if we're lucky, hearing that still small voice of calm. Notice in that story of Elijah didn't talk at God, but waited and then heard the silence. The biblical reading today, Exodus 32, is the story of the golden calf. In verses 19 and 20, Moses, in his wrath, broke not only the golden calf, but also the sacred tablets of stone, upon which was allegedly inscribed the Ten Commandments that he brought down from Mount Sinai, the same mountain on which Elijah had heard that still small voice. Maybe Moses broke them because he thought, why have commandments when there's no perception of the vastness of God? And people just want an earthbound created image to worship. The story of the golden calf is a tale of human need for security and surety, the allure of the tangible, the desire to get a God you can handle, or affix a handle to. Iconography, the art of making beautiful two-dimensional images that point to or invite the pilgrim to see through them into something of the wonder and ways of God. It has always been a dangerous undertaking. For people literalize. They mistake the image for the real, not unlike social media today. And when the image begins to resemble a shut door rather than an open window, an end rather than a beginning, then people have begun to leash and muzzle God, to use a dog metaphor. And then it's time for iconoclasm, the breaking of images. Some of our Presbyterian forebears took iconoclasm literally, had an awful smashing time, destroying a lot of art and beauty in the name of liberating God, while at the same time constraining God within a straitjacket of words and ideas they had found in the Bible. Though I empathize with the notion that God can't be captured in art, it was a pity our forebears didn't realize that God could be glimpsed. Or better, paths to God could be glimpsed. Their vandalism robbed so many of the living and yet to be born of wonderful prayers in paint and stone. I wish they had realized that iconoclasm is really a discipline of the mind and heart. Some years ago, I sat with a student who was training to be a minister. Before he began his training, he had never heard of God seriously addressed as she. To merge into the culture of the university's theology department and to be sensitive to the spiritual sensibilities of other students, he told me that he now occasionally addressed God using feminine pronouns. Like many students before him, of whatever denomination, I surmise that when he came to leave the theological college, he will leave these pronoun supplements behind. So I invited him to consider a path of prayer, and for a period of 2 months to put on she when he prayed, like most ministers put on robes or a suit before a service. I invited him into the discomfort, the disorientation, the feeling of artificiality. For when you've put on feminine pronouns in sermons and liturgy, you become acutely aware of your dependency on maleness. I invited him to walk a very different path that would lead him to grieve the absence of a male God that he would have previously denied he had. The purpose of this discipline was not to convert him to a female god, but to help him to see and break free of the God Father, who dominated his prayers and indeed still continues to lord it over much of Christian religion. The maleness of God, Father God, is an icon. As an icon, it's helpful to many people. It says that God's not far away, but intimate, accessible, protecting, nurturing, like a father. Though for some people, the father icon has the opposite effect. It reminds them of fathers who were far from God, and some who thought they were God. And of course, Mother God, Brother God, Sister God would also offer images of intimacy, accessibility, protection, and comfort. People confuse the image with the reality. Too many people discard Christianity when it seems like nonsense praying to Our Father which art in heaven. As I inferred last week, heaven is also an image rather than a reality, pointing to the divine being uncircumscribed by our human systems. People mistake the icon, the signpost, for that being pointed to. Some of us Christians spend our whole lives praying to a male god. We use that icon all our life. And while we might not think of God as male, the image infiltrates our subconscious and restricts God to a particular boundary. Others of us are not content to stay with one icon or to stay with any anthropomorphic icon. As we travel the path of faith, we find images can both guide and restrict us. Faith requires us to both hold on to images for a time and then also to let them go. The final thing I want to say today about icons is that some icons are themselves iconoclastic. I think Rublev's icon portraying three non-binary beings in community is breaking the image of Trinity as a divine hierarchy of Father, then Son, then subservient Spirit. And Robert Lentz's icon of three women of different ages and cultures birthing and nurturing the world pushes Trinitarian understanding even further. Similarly, I think some icons of female saints, depicted as authoritative and operating outside the bounds of convention and male control, which are often both the same thing, are breaking the icon's images of meek and mild, do as you're told notions of femininity. Like many of the icons of St. Bridget of Kildare, or Robert Lentz's icon of the 3rd century martyrs, Perpetua and Felicity, whose race and relationship cross boundaries of class and gender. Similarly, I think some of the icons of political activists, seeking a common good that is not the good of the powerful, that the powerful champion, are also breaking icons' images of obeying the law, being humble and compliant to political authorities. Like the icon of Bishop Oscar Romero of El Salvador, who died because he defended the poor and incurred the wrath of El Salvador's leaders. And the icon of Dorothy Day, who began the Catholic worker movement in America and sided with the unions. Icons have the ability to not only point out paths that others have followed to God, but to also question the path that we are on. Blessings to you this week.